Welcome once again to the Detroit Guitar Trio podcast. This time around, we are talking about breathing. So, topics discussed include conscious breathing, body monitoring, and musical breathing. We also share a couple breathing techniques, strategies to cope with stress. Then we cap our discussion with some suggestions on breathable performance attire. We end the podcast with a trio segment where we plan our next rehearsal. I hope you enjoy and find this episode helpful. Well, here we are. We've returned. We banded together once again, the Salty Dogs. The crew is back together, sailing the high seas. Wow. Here we are. We have another topic. It is a simple one, but I think an important one that's perhaps overlooked, with instruments which don't require breathing, like the guitar, so we will talk about it. Breathing. Just simply breathing, that's what we're going to talk about, which I think, yes, is very important. I think a great place to start is just how conscious are we even of our breathing. I'll go first, break the ice a bit. I really wasn't conscious of my breathing for a long time, even throughout undergrad. And I had this great advice from a professor who said, "Wow, you're not breathing when you're playing." So I was like, okay, I'll start thinking about that. Of course, I was still breathing, but they were kind of these shallow little breaths going on, because I was experiencing some nerves and whatnot during performing. So ever since then, I have been pursuing my breath. Basically, if I'm kind of in a more nervous state when I'm performing, I'll go into kind of these shallow breaths that aren't deep at all. And then I notice that kind of a lot of things drop off, as soon as breathing cuts out. Stability kind of drops off, accuracy. A lot of things fall away when you're starving yourself of those very deep breaths. So that was sort of when I first became conscious of breathing. And I still very much have to work at it. During performance, I have to consciously breathe. I'll forget to. And I've noticed that once I have started taking nice deep, healing breaths, it helps a lot with stability, with execution, and comfort as well in performing. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of my awakening, regarding breath and breathing and being conscious of it. Tony, have you thought about your breathing at all?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, I just hold my breath the whole time.
Oh my word, that's
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do, on the 9-minute pieces. Yes, I think a lot about my breathing, but it not while I'm performing. It's something I do pre-performance, and it's something I do in my practice. So it becomes a part of my routine, part of the performance of my piece. And so, I'm looking for that to subconsciously carry over into my performances. Just like I don't think about the mechanics of my hammer-ons. I just, of my slurs, I just do them. So it's those things that I'm looking, to happen, the only times I'm consciously thinking of breathing, as far as like in our trio, when I'm, leading in entrances, or even myself when I'm performing key areas that are, you're taking the audience on a journey, and so key areas, there are clear breaths being made, audible, but nothing obnoxious, because we can see that as well. So yeah, I mean, I could talk more about that if you want me to talk about that, but just to answer that surface level question, yes, I think a lot about my breathing.
Yeah, yeah, nice. It's interesting that you practice breathing away from performing and then kind of trust it to happen during performance. That doesn't work at all for me. I have to, I find I have to just consciously breathe during performance. Even, to the extent that I've practiced breathing outside of performing, I'm still practicing that, but in performance, I certainly have to consciously do it. Do you ever notice when you're performing that you stop breathing at all? Or have you found that that's been pretty reliable for you? You've just naturally breathed well throughout performing?
I find that the breathing part is been reliable.
Okay.
I do find um, it's it's usually when I'm performing, there is a, in the middle of running through rep, I do cycle through, how do I feel right now? And a lot of times, oh, I'm tense in my shoulders. Relax. And then just that relaxation kind of also relaxation also ties into the breath. Like
Mm,
I loosen up, just physically loosening up, and then my breath becomes more deep and more you know more open,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that all that helps. So yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, nice, nice. That's good. So, Scott, do you even think about what's up with your breathing? Are you still breathing, Scott?
I am still breathing.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh my. All
I
right.
don't know, like we chatted briefly before we started, and I don't know. I don't think about it too much, honestly. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be valuable, and maybe I should, but it's just not something I thought about. I certainly think about, I've thought about it in the past to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to, just generally just feel relaxed and at ease while I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
Not always the case. And I think that I probably think about that when I'm doing it. It's just never been a focus, like thinking about, breathing at certain points or whatever, or like, trying to
Mm.
have a regular breath or something. But yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think it's interesting, and I can
Yeah.
certainly see how it would affect your playing quite a bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've got some body monitoring going. So you're not
Yeah.
thinking about it a whole lot, but do you notice when your relaxation is not there? Do you kind of notice when, oof, I'm breathing shallow, or oof, I'm feeling very tense? Do you ever notice that happening?
I do, yeah. I mean, I have
Yeah.
certain spots in my body that I've become aware of that I don't know. I'm sure there are other spots in my body that are tense, but I have certain
Yeah.
spots that I kind of focus on more,
Mm-hmm.
and so those will come up. But yeah, no, I haven't really thought of like of breathing. I have worked with a few students on like I think a common spot to have kind of tension is in the face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you see people who are like, I mean,
Dumping it.
I've even had students like do the Michael Jordan, where they're sticking their tongue out type thing. And I mean, you can't blame them. That's just where they're showing their tension. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's quite obvious at that point.
Yeah.
But I remember doing some work because I used to have a little bit of jaw tension when I played,
Mm-hmm.
like a long time ago.
Oh
And
yeah.
I did this thing where I kind of put my tongue. Actually, I think it was Brian who told me about this. He was like, "Put your tongue on the roof of your mouth,
Mm.
behind your front teeth,
Mm-hmm.
and have your mouth kind of like slightly open type thing." And I don't know
Uh-huh.
what it was about that, but I did do that. I kind of focused on that for a while, and I feel like that also required some type of like conscious breathing while I was
Mm.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Nice. And it helped with the jaw tension?
it did. Now I
Nice.
maybe I still have some jaw tension, but I never feel it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a thing in online culture. It's called mewing. Well, apparently it was developed by a dentist, but
What is
that's
it?
that's it. Mewing. Well, it's putting the tongue on the roof of your mouth and then applying pressure, but it's a whole
Oh, okay.
it's a whole
Yeah, I mean, I did something like that. I don't even remember it that clearly, but I did something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it worked because now I never feel that way. I mean, I'm sure I still have tension now and then, but pretty minimal, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, a lot of that's like kind of the best medicine if you're experiencing any kind of body tension or noticing that you're not breathing. It's really just as simple as bringing awareness to it and making sure you've set yourself in a nice position. And then the more aware you are of it, then you'll just slowly stop doing it over time. But yeah, body monitoring is pretty essential. But I have lots of jaw tension. I gump it.
Do you?
I gump it now. I'll do like weird things with my lips.
Oh, yeah,
I'll do that. I got to watch out for that.
Actually, during my performance, I was sitting rather close to some of my students yesterday, and I noticed like some kids
It's like pursing the lips. It's kind of an odd thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'll do that.
That was a big one. I looked at him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we should talk about that."
Yeah. I had a student where Tony and I work, and we do juries, and we get feedback from other colleagues of ours. And one of the feedback for one of the students, she's like, "Wow, I noticed the student has mouth tension."
Mhm.
Then we're both like, "What? I don't think so." And then we go back and check the video. It's like, "Oh my goodness, you have mouth tension." So it was, of course, a nice moment to learn and to continue to be aware.
I mean, that's what's great about having a variety of teachers like watch students. I mean, as we're like the ones teaching them the songs, so hard to be because we're so focused on like their fingers and maybe their bodies to a degree, but like where's your finger going and how does that look and how does it sound and stuff like that. So there's a lot to focus on. So yeah, I was surprised I had missed that, but
yeah. I guess breathing kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with body monitoring and keeping an eye on your energy and making sure everything's flowing well, because posture and breathing are for sure tied together. But yeah, cool. So Tony brought up something. So we've discussed breathing kind of as like, kind of in an introductory way, just kind of are we generally conscious of it or not. But he brought up a couple points on some more functional reasons to breathe, particularly with like a conducting breath, which we've gotten a lot of experience with recently in the trio, is all practicing giving clear breaths to begin phrases, which is a tricky art in itself. It is challenging to give a very clear breath, but there are certainly functional aspects to that kind of breathing. One thing I would kind of like to explore, see if you guys do it or not, is kind of breathing into the character of a piece while you're playing it. For example, maybe if you've got, and Tony touched on it a little, say if you've got like this really passionate section coming up, do you kind of breathe into it to like get that character and that energy rolling before you play a phrase? Do you guys ever find yourselves breathing musically? Any thoughts? Tony, perhaps?
100%. That's what I was talking about when I'm focusing on my breathing when I practice. Breathing and singing go hand in hand. Well, singing and breathing go hand in hand. And so when you're singing these melody lines when you're practicing, you are forced to think about the phrasing and the breathing. And what really got me thinking more about breathing was when I started playing with a flautist, and they had to breathe. And so we had to make sure phrasing, worked for them to physically breathe. And I mean, that was huge for my playing. And then we breathe together. And so when I'm practicing my music, that's kind of what I mean. I'm practicing almost like I'm audiating in my head and breathing as if I was singing.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And then so I'm practicing that and then when I go to perform, that's kind of what happens. So if it's an intense phrase and I'm singing and I would be singing it intensely, yes, my breathing would mimic that or support that.
Yeah.
But for sure,
Yeah.
100%. Like my breathing is in line with the music. If it's intense, it's some more, and if it's more lush and open, and yeah, the breathing is light and lovely. Um, because I think the
Yeah.
way we breathe does affect our tone.
Hmm.
If we have this, I mean, there's science and research behind all of this too that supports that. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a sense, I was told this in college, a professor said it jokingly because he knew I played a stringed instrument, and he's just like, "Oh, don't worry, you don't have to breathe." But because he's just saying it as a joke, of course. But there is a sense in which even instruments which don't require breath to activate, their tone, um, there's a sense in which breathing is still very much essential. It's like even though we don't have to breathe, there's a human element that's missing when we play as though we didn't need to breathe at all. That's actually a little bit to use organ, the pipe organ, as another example. I studied organ just a little bit, but my keyboard skills are meager. But one thing that we talked about is playing the organ, an instrument that has infinite sustain, and legato, infinite sustain and easy legato. Playing it in such a way that it sounds like you have to breathe, which is so interesting to me. It's like we work so much on sustain on the guitar, and then you get an instrument like the organ where it's like, oh, you've got too much sustain, and you have to work on adding in that kind of human limitation to it to make it exciting and interesting. So, and the case I think is the same on the scale of something like the guitar, where no, we don't need to breathe to play it, but there is a sense in which we need to kind of have that limitation of breath to make it interesting and musical and exciting. But yeah, so we still need to breathe, believe it or not. We still need to breathe.
yeah, I mean, on that end, if we don't breathe or don't breathe strategically, I mean, there's so many things that aren't that work against us. There's a lack of oxygen just to the muscles in the brain. You get
Yeah.
tension in your hands, you rush the tempo, your tone degrades, you get mental fog or mental freezing, like, wait, what's going on? You
Yep.
stop breathing, fight or flight kicks in. It's there are so many negative side effects to not breathing or not breathing strategically.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked into it a little bit, but yeah, as you said, the shallow breaths, that's for fight or flight. And then you can consciously move away from that with the deep breaths, which stimulate the vagus nerve. So you kind of have these deep rhythmic breaths, and it will calm you down just with breathing. So but yeah, it sure is helpful to breathe.
Well, I have a few considerations, like just piggybacking on what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
So, now I already said I don't think about this a lot, but I do think that there is a difference between melodic vocal music and instrumental music, of course, right? Obviously, it's like there's vocal music is different than instrumental music in a variety of ways. And like even just like if something is kind of more like figuration is not something you hear a lot in vocal music, where it's like, just kind of an ending arpeggiation or something like that. And I think it is interesting to a degree that, voice has that constraint and instrumental music does not. And, so, I mean, I think sometimes, I mean, personally, I don't feel like if I come to a phrase in the music that's like, maybe more dramatic than, like, say, there's one that's kind of peaceful. I don't know, maybe my heart rate goes up and my breathing accelerates, but I'm not aware of that. And I'm certainly not, I can say for sure that I'm certainly not kind of mimicking with my breath what I'll be playing. So I'm not like, if like a passionate kind of part's coming up, I'm not like, like kind of like breathing heavy as I would if I was like, So I don't do that, and I'm not sure that that would be helpful. But it might just be a preference thing. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I'm not breathing heavy when I'm doing that. I'm breathing as like the duration of the breath is
So
in
the
line.
interval of the inhale and
Yes.
exhale.
Yes, the
Okay.
duration of it is in line with the phrase. But even in instrumental music, that's not, let's say, melodic or vocal like. Breath can also strengthen the underlying pulse
Of course, yeah.
and phrase direction. So just even let's say we're just playing like rhythmic accompaniments, like in Bajo, for example, one of the pieces I play, it's more rhythmic.
Yeah.
Just having breath along with the pulse of that solidifies and keeps it from also sounding mechanical. We don't want it to sound too mechanical, but it keeps it much more organic.
Well, yeah, I think that's the key word there, and I was going to say that too. That I think breathing and having these kind of regular phrases is kind of an organic thing, right? It's kind of inhale exhale type thing, but I think sometimes like instrumental music can go against that grain at times, and also kind of have a sense of holding breath, in this kind of like long, like kind of maybe dramatic moment where it's like you come right up to a cadence or something, or it's kind of unending, and instrumental music has a good way of expressing that. But yeah, I mean, you certainly don't want, I don't know, I mean, maybe there'd be a good situation where you would want something to sound kind of unnatural, maybe for a certain effect or something, but yeah.
Yeah. With one of my teachers, we were even talking about, we were getting into the nitty gritty of like the potential of coordinating your breaths with like the downbeats of measures. Mm-hmm. So like you could like have an exhale and then like two measures later then you breathe in or something. So I don't know. I haven't gotten to that seems level of a detail.
That seems unnatural.
I don't know. If you got good enough at it, it might be kind of cool.
Maybe, but
to be that coordinated with your breathing.
I know, but you want your breath to just follow the rhythm of the natural breath. That's what you need at the state you're in at that moment. So if you're running, you'd be breathing, quicker or something, and but if you're just sitting playing guitar, I don't know.
You can bring consciousness to your breath though.
But I think once you do bring consciousness to your breath, then you're kind of abandoning something that's really important, just like the necessary breath of your playing. I think that's kind of artificial.
Then you become breathing instead of the music.
You become breathing instead of the music.
Oh man, you just become diaphragmatic expansion. That's possible. You could fixate too much on it. Yeah. There is a sense in which you kind of just want it to do its own thing. But yeah, some techniques for practicing it come to mind. I've gotten away from doing this. I might return to this technique, but it's just sitting. Sky gets baffled every time I bring this up. But it's just sitting with your guitar in playing position and then just holding that stance and focusing on your breathing and holding your guitar. And the idea of it is to get that ready position just as relaxed and as natural, supported with consistent breathing as possible, just that basic position. And I feel like it helped out a little bit, but it does feel very...
It helped out with what?
With breathing and posture. Breathing and posture. Because it's like... I mean, I don't think it's obviously the only thing, because, well, I thought it was helpful because you're stripping everything else away, and the only thing you're focusing on is your posture and your breathing while in playing position. So because it gave me the opportunity to do that, I felt that it was helpful. But, of course, other things are necessary, like playing the guitar. But there is a sense in which it could only help so much, because once you're actually playing a piece, You have to get good at essentially the same thing while playing a piece of staying relaxed and breathing. So I think it was a helpful little part for me, but I haven't revisited it in a while. I might recently, but that was one thing I used to consciously practice breathing. Another thing is to just have an exercise or a scale that I'm working on, and then when I do a repetition of it, I just say, all right, this time around I'm gonna consciously breathe, and that's how I just slowly work on adding my breathing into playing.
It's kind of a weird thing because I don't know, once you start thinking about your breathing and you're like, am I breathing? Then then it's like your breath all of a sudden feels different.
Yeah.
It's almost like yeah, I mean, so how are you aware of it, Ben, when you are playing and maybe you're not breathing in a natural way? You're kind of
Yeah,
like maybe
yeah.
holding your breath. What makes you?
Yeah, I notice that I'm holding tension. I'm not breathing often, and when I do, it's very shallow. And that's how I notice, and I'm like, oh man. And it's easy to not notice when I'm practicing because it's not a really big deal and it's not a high stress situation. But then when I'm performing, like, oof, it becomes very apparent when I'm not breathing at all. So that was what kind of another thing that kind of clued me into, oh man, I need to really consciously breathe while I'm playing, while I'm practicing, so that it has a chance of carrying over during performance. So that was kind of.
Have you had success with that? Like
I'm getting better. I'm
yeah.
getting better at breathing. I still am not happy with where I'm breathing. I need to breathe more. But it's hard. I have a lot of diaphragm tension, it feels like, as well. It was a serial sloucher for a minute, so I've had to work out a lot of like core tension for some reason.
Huh.
So I have to work to diaphragmatically breathe. While we're talking about diaphragmatic breathing, some breathing tips. It's pretty simple, or at least in the beginning. I think you can get pretty complicated with breath work as far as how long you're holding, how quickly you're exhaling, and all kinds of stuff. But the basic idea is when you breathe, everything that can expand should expand. So your belly should expand. That's how you know that your diaphragm is activating. When you get really good at it, your chest, of course, expands. Your back will expand. Your lower back will expand. Even your neck will expand a little bit if you take in a really nice, deep diaphragmatic breath. So that's basically all there is to it. Is just
Yeah, it's
expand
funny.
as much as you can.
Yeah, it's funny because you always see those like cartoons where at least I did somehow from when I was young, where like the character's taking a really big breath in
Mm-hmm.
and their stomach just kind of like it goes in or whatever.
Yeah, your
That's
stomach.
like
Yeah,
that's the opposite,
that's
right?
exactly opposite.
Yeah.
No, your belly should expand. Your belly should never
I mean, I think they
contract.
were maybe showing like that it was like, their chest was getting bigger or something. I don't know, their lungs expanding, but I always have it
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
somebody's like, waist getting really skinny because they're like taking a big breath.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the opposite.
No, no, your belly should expand. Your belly should expand.
Yeah.
If you're like a vocalist and you're like working on some breath control, I have some vocal experience. But you breathe in, your belly expands, and then when you're going, I gotta make sure not to blow obnoxiously into the mic. When you're doing that,
Uh-huh.
you're feeling kind of it's kind of a lower belly type area muscle that will contract in. So that's where some belly contraction comes into when you're using that muscle to
Mhm.
really, fire out the air. But certainly when you're breathing in initially, it's a lovely expansion of the stomach, which is, not the stomach, it's the diaphragm, but the kind of the best way to explain it is the belly, because
Mhm.
your diaphragm's kind of right below your rib cage or whatnot. But yeah, so those are some helpful breathing tips to go on the path. But yeah, we talked about it a little bit. How much do you guys work on breathing with your students at all? I mean, Scott, you talked about it a little. Tony, do you ever address breathing with your students?
No, to be honest, no.
Oh man.
But I don't know. I was thinking about that, and
Mm-hmm.
so much of what I do in teaching is modeling for my students, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, just like when I play a phrase and I expect them to play it back, you know, um, like I think there is some of that might naturally get picked up subconsciously. I do talk about taking a breath before they play their pieces or leading into their piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I have talked about breath, but it's not something that I've had to exercise with them. I find that none of my students like get done playing and go, ah, like they've been holding their breath. I
Uh,
mean, that might have happened a long time ago, but I'm not seeing that anymore in my students. And I don't know, actually, I don't know why. But the only thing I can probably attest that to is just me myself being more conscious and that
mm-hmm.
and that when I'm modeling that, when I model good tone or good phrasing, when I sing or when I have them sing, they are practicing breathing for the sake of the music.
Mm.
So, I don't have a good answer for that. Do I? The answer is no. I do not directly work on that with my students.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like that's kind of the goal of breathing in the end. I mean, and Scott kind of seems to have that opinion as well, is you kind of just want it to be automatic. You want it to be in a spot where you're naturally breathing along with the music. I think that that's what I'm working towards, so I have to be conscious with it at the moment. And maybe there is a time where you still want to be very conscious with your breathing during performing, but yeah, I think that's definitely what you're aiming for it to just happen on its own pretty naturally.
I mean, we get a lot of practice in group class where we're playing as an ensemble, and I'm always reminding them to move with me, but to move the same way as me, right? So if I'm moving just a little bit, I expect them to move a little bit. If one kid is just like rocking out, he's ruining the character of the piece because he's feeling it differently. If we all feel it the same, and then I ask them to breathe with me, I'm not like instructing them how to breathe. I'm like, move with me, breathe with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's they seem to just pick it up organically. I mean, I wish I had that kind of education when I grew up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And these kids pick up so many things without even having to be explicitly told because they, when you model something, they just pick these things up. And occasionally, like, hey kid, try this without going into micro details of how to do something. Hey, try this. Let's see how it goes. And then clean it up from there. It's just fun to try every once in a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's interesting to really like. I think Ben, you were making this comparison earlier that breathing seems to be tied to tension, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
kind of like breathing that's not healthy necessarily, or
Mm-hmm.
And I think particularly with Suzuki and with good teachers like Tony, you just don't have a lot of natural tension present. I mean, it's not going to come as frequently from the guitar playing because
Mm-hmm.
the books, I'm a Suzuki teacher too, and the books are sequenced pretty well. And a knowledgeable teacher will take the student along each piece in the repertoire series where they're not coming up against these like really difficult passages that they've never done before, and if they are kind of challenging, then we'll help prepare them for that and stuff. So it's like it's not an overwhelming amount of tension in the playing.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I actually was making note of the students I have just yesterday, who I was noticing have some facial tension, and I actually feel like these kids in particular I'm talking about, they have, and I'm being careful not to say any details, but they've been going through a lot lately, and I feel like it's more external. It's not from the music they're playing, but it's external. So, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I was just saying we're lucky to have that, have that experience because I think that could be part of it too. You have students who have a low amount of tension in their playing, and they'll just be kind of relaxed when they're playing. I mean, kids in general. It's like, yeah, I've had a few adult students, and they're definitely a little bit,
That's all.
they're bringing a lot more
has
natural
happened.
tension. Yeah.
They're bringing all the
just for
hang-ups into it.
Like I have a student that is just generally intense.
Yeah.
Kind of, and there's there's bigger things that we're working on than breathing.
Yeah.
So, but maybe that's something that would be that maybe I should be more active about. But usually it's like, Mike, hold on, like before you start like tearing off, let's stop, take a deep breath, and let's think about what we're doing before you just go. Like just pause. So I've got a kid like that. That's just
Yeah.
he's got other things that he's got to work on. But in general, I don't really. This is I record my student recitals, and then I can watch and what happens after the fact, without I can analyze it and rewatch it, and that helps because then I can see, we've been working on their posture. That's better. That's better. They're looking a little over too much, over the fingerboard too much still, and we can work on that. Or, you catch things that you normally don't see in a lesson because you're teaching, you're observing other things. Like you mentioned, like when you're teaching, you can only focus on so much. So recording and watching your students in performance is super valuable.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we record ourselves when we rehearse, audio record.
We do.
Maybe
we should do video.
We've done some video, but yeah, maybe we should do more video.
You can see my pursed lips as I move through the scalar passages. Ben's looking like he's ready to give someone a smooch over there. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, there is an interesting sense in which breathing is very much tied to movement as well. It's almost like you really have something going when you can tie them together. Yeah, there's certainly nervous movement as well. I've worked with a couple students who their breathing I think is mostly fine, but the movement is very twitchy and non-musical. So I tell them, it's actually great to move in music, but the movement has to become musical. I think when that movement can get synced up with the breath, it can get even more powerful. Because then everything's kind of starting to link up. Your breathing, your movement, and then the movement of the music as well.
Can you be more specific with the movement?
The movement is like kind of a nervous but rhythmic not twitching, moving of the knees. Like the whole knees are moving. Like swinging back, like the knees are swinging back and forth.
Oh,
like a lot.
Like the kid just kind of fidgeting.
Yeah, it's like a fidget, but yeah, it's basically just swinging the knees back and forth, like kind of in a fidgety way.
It's amazing they can play like that.
I know, it's like that would be, if I was doing that would be so unstable. But the student was playing fine like it, so I'm like, listen.
Up and they're like,
yeah. I'm like, movement is not a bad thing, but it has to be conscious movement. If it's that unconscious kind of nervous movement that's detached from the music, that's gonna just be distracting. But then if you can pair them together, your breathing and your movement, then you're starting to cook, I think. Starting to get things moving along.
Do you think posture? So here's maybe another consideration. Do you think? I would assume posture would affect breathing, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the more slumped over you are, then your rib cage is shut down, and you can't breathe as well either.
So
because of that.
So with guitar playing, like for classical guitar position and the standard position, that would be a good reason to be more upright. You think?
Yeah, that's a good point. one thing I aim for was a suggestion of my teacher I studied with at Wayne, Brian Roberts. Was find your center of balance on the chair, and then kind of lean back. And then when you feel your core activating, you're like, okay, now I've gone back too far. And then you can kind of lean forward a little bit. So then you're actually kind of moving and swaying on this area around your point of your center of gravity. So I think that's what I aspire for in my playing position, and I think that would help with breathing. Because the thing I struggled with a long time, and you see it a lot, I think, in older classical guitarists, maybe not so much players nowadays who are
The leaning forward.
Yeah, isn't that rough?
Well, it's funny,
Especially on a footrest, leaning forward.
Yeah.
I was just going to
footrest.
bring that up. The
Oh.
supports that we use, like I feel like I breathe so much better now that I don't use a footrest. That I use a support that attaches the guitar that allows my feet both to be flat on the ground. We were talking about this a few episodes ago about posture.
Yeah.
And just having both, you can breathe better. Your diaphragm is less compressed,
Mhm.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. The footstool definitely makes me feel, because now and then, like when I'm teaching, I don't want to mess around with the support, so I'll grab a footstool, and I still feel like I'm leaning forward when I'm playing with the footstool. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Scott and I were on the taller side, although you got quite a few inches on me. You're quite tall. I think the taller you are, the worse it is.
Yeah.
As far as a footrest.
Yeah. Before I had a history of like leaning forward a lot, and
Yeah.
I thought about it. I practiced leaning back. But now I definitely agree with Tony though too. I mean, the guitar support is such a game changer for that, because it feels so much easier to just sit upright. Something about the footstool, and it never felt comfortable for me. So
Yeah.
Something I've made a conscious decision of recently is, when I've given performances before in a suit, the jacket can be kind of restrictive. I think it looks great. But the something I just tried a couple of days ago was I played without my jacket.
Whoa.
And honestly, I think it was great. It's not as as nice as wearing your suit jacket, but it was, just I feel like the blood circulation to your arms, you're a little bit more, constricted. I mean, I'm a skinny guy, I'm a little guy, so like I wear a fitted suit, so that doesn't, and I'm putting on weight from winter weight, so like it's a little tighter.
Oh man.
And so like it does feel constricting, and so I made the executive decision to not wear it while playing, and it definitely. I don't know if I don't know if it was placebo effect or whatever, but I didn't feel constricted, breathing wise, or in my shoulders or under my arms, and I think it helped, because I've had it before where I wore the jacket and I felt constricted, and I felt like the blood flow wasn't good to the hands because of it.
Yeah.
So I think clothing can affect our breathing. And I always like Andrew York, what he wears. I'm like, man, I just want to wear stuff like that. That's just like,
what does he wear?
It's like just
like
loose.
the poopy Renaissance shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. A pirate shirt. I opened up with pirates. The pirates are back.
And like I had a one holiday concert with students. It was like pajamas. And I was so cozy, and like I was playing, it was like holiday pajamas, and I was so cozy. And granted, I'm playing, simpler stuff with students, but man, I just felt so good about being in pajamas and comfortable clothes. Yeah. Like it was amazing how I felt. I was like, I wish I could feel like this all the time. I just want to perform in pajamas. It was interesting. It was like, flannel plaid pants and just kind of like a sweater kind of top. And I was like, cozy socks, and I felt so good and warm and
So our next gig has to be like sweatpants and tank top.
I agree. Yep. Tony's the one who's fussy on the wardrobe, and now since he wants to be comfortable, we have his permission to
concert cotton.
Yep. We can wear sweatpants now. That's great. But then we won't be like the maestro. Why don't we all wear tuxedos? That is, speaking of constricting breathing, oh my word, a tuxedo is so rough to wear.
A bow tie.
Yep. I wear one every now and then for some choir concerts, and it really is so uncomfortable. Because then you have the added, if you're playing a guitar in a tuxedo, you have the added slickness of the material combined with the lack of breathability from yourself getting choked out a bit.
Yeah. Posture plays such a huge role. I forgot I had my rubber mat, like a non-slip. And it was hanging on my music stand, and like I'd adjust my guitar while I was playing, and I'm like, oh, I gotta remember to put that on. I kept forgetting to put it on my leg so my guitar wouldn't slip. And when I use it, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
When you're wearing dress pants and stuff, like, and I'm like, I always like forget to use it. And I bring it and I set it up. I'm like, oh, it's on my stand. Like, make sure I grab it.
Yeah.
But that does make a difference too.
Yeah. They are an added layer though. They are an added layer of inconvenience. But they do help out quite a bit. They are quite nice. But yeah, clothing certainly has an effect on breathing.
But clothing is, there's a lot of clothing, there are some boutique clothing companies that specialize in clothing for musicians.
Ooh.
And they're tailored in such a way, or you could get them tailored in such a way so they're not so restrictive. Like I've seen quite a bit of clothing for conductors. So that allows them to get their arms up without it like looking weird, but also without being too restrictive. And the type of fabrics have a little bit more flex now, but by still having a more classical or traditional look. So there are I've done some research on possible alternatives for like my dress shirt, because I like the kind of like Mandarin shirt, where there's
could look like a kung fu master.
But there's the buttons aren't exposed, so where there's no chance of them kind of rattling against the guitar, and the shirt then doesn't it looks fine without a tie. You know what I mean? And so and it's a little more open around the neck, so it's not so tight. A little more blood flow.
Yeah, you showed me some of those shirts. They do look quite nice.
Yeah.
For some of the parts that I'm playing in our repertoire recently, I have to play in a very high position, and I have to lean forward quickly so I can reach under my guitar. And the buttons on my shirt will catch on the guitar. It is so annoying. The buttons will scrape and catch because I can't lean forward quickly, so it would be nice to have some Kung Fu Master attire to help out with that.
We would all look so cool.
We would look so cool.
Or we go retro and we all do the black turtleneck.
A turtleneck wouldn't be bad. We could do an homage to Parkening.
Yeah.
Or white turtlenecks as well. We could do white turtlenecks. A turtleneck would actually be pretty nice. Imagine how warm it would be around your neck. And so it'd keep your neck warm, but it would still be breathable. You could still breathe. Turtlenecks might not be a bad play. I think I'm down for turtlenecks.
I'd like to pivot to a little bit is, we've had a discussion about anxiety and performance anxiety. And one of the things like I like to do before I perform is like a box breathing technique. And so I want to share that. There's so many different breathing techniques. There's the Wim Hof breathing technique. He's this guy that like cold plunges and half naked and runs
for miles barefoot in the Arctic.
And there's all sorts of things, and there's so much research. And there's like things can't be substantiated, and I don't know. What I find that works is just conscious, controlled breathing. you can set a metronome. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold that out for 4. Because you talked about it earlier. But I like to do this before performing. If I'm driving to the gig or anything, it's kind of meditative, because I'm also counting with it, and I'm focusing on how it feels when I exhale, what it feels like when I'm holding my breath, what it feels like when my body wants to pull in breath. So it's just a very like centering thing, because one, I'm focusing on the counting, I'm focusing on the feeling. It allows me to have deep breathing, it slows down my breathing, and it really reduces anxiety going into a performance, or to a stressful environment. It does not. I do this even when I've got to do things that are stressful.
Yeah.
Thoughts about that for pre-performance breathing
Yeah,
concepts?
I have never, if I'm really amped up, no amount of breathing will make the nerves go away. But I think it's not good for me. Of course, it's essential to still do that deep breathing before performing. But I will say that about my experience with it, because hearing about it for the first time, it's like, oh wow, I can really calm myself down with breathing. But I feel like for me, it's an essential part that I just focus on deep breathing. I don't time. I just focus on deep conscious breathing. But it's essential, but in my experience, unfortunately, it doesn't make nerves like get significantly tamped down. So there was kind of that. Unless, I have some ascension to do with my breathing techniques, but
You know, I don't know if it's necessarily going to help with the nerves aspect, but it will help with the symptoms,
certainly,
the
yeah.
physical symptoms of
It
it,
does,
right?
it does.
Where
Yeah.
the shaking,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because what you're essentially like increasing your oxygen load to your brain. It's like
Mm-hmm.
football players huffing oxygen tanks on the side. I mean, we should do that before performance and see
Oh,
how that
yeah, take
works.
a hit before we go out.
Because just having that 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 deep fill of oxygen does so much for your brain, allowing you to focus and allowing you to concentrate and allowing you to control your fine motor skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I don't know. I mean, everybody's different. Every scenario is slightly different. But it is
Mm-hmm.
something I do, and maybe it is slightly superstitious.
No, I don't think it is. I don't
I
think it
mean,
is.
everybody
It
has,
literally, it scientifically does stimulate your
yeah.
vagus nerve, which calms you down.
I mean, everybody's got different
Yeah.
pre-performance routines. Somebody like eats a bundle of bananas. Somebody's going to take a nap and then go for a walk, and eat this before and don't eat that. Like, it can be quite nuts.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like I approach wherever I'm at, wherever. Okay, well, that's just how I feel today. I was car sick from sitting in a bus. Well, that's how I feel. Well, what can I control? I can control my breathing. I could, I felt like I needed a little bit of sugar, so I had some fruit snacks, and I definitely felt so much better after that. I felt like um, the best I could possibly be because of those choices. So you just kind of
Yeah.
take, okay,
Yeah.
well, this is where I'm coming from. If you're coming from teaching, or if you're coming from, if it's late at night, these are all things
Mm-hmm.
to consider. But you just
Yeah.
approach the scenarios like, this is what I got. What can I control in the moment that will help me do my best?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I certainly feel that it's essential, though. I think I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, but I'll be performing and things will be going well. And then I'll notice I'm getting less stable. I'm like, oh, why am I getting less stable? And I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot to breathe. So it vary as far as the direct physical benefits that we're talking about. I have direct experience of that while performing, like how essential it is to breathe. So it really does affect your physicality and your fine motor movements. Apparently they're the first to go. if your brain is oxygen starved, those fine motor movements, which are kind of important for playing classical guitar, they're kind of essential. Alrighty, though, so that's our discussion on breathing. Hopefully that was helpful. Gonna tack on a little trio segment, little trio update here at the end. We have a performance coming up. Won't be doing a whole hour. We'll be doing maybe around 20-25 minutes of our repertoire. But and we have a rehearsal coming up in a couple days. Thoughts, guys, on stuff we'll be focusing on, stuff that will help us out a lot in our coming performance. Scott, any ideas? What do you think we'll be maybe focusing on coming up?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, well, it's nice because we're performing less material, so we don't have to worry about focusing and hitting everything. We can kind of, go deeper on a few of the pieces specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we talked about this last time when we kind of had a debrief after our last performance, and I think some of the important things could be the ideas we talked about around cueing each other or leading certain segments and stuff like that. Although, I mean, I think the pieces we're playing certainly, I mean, everything we play requires that, but the big one that requires the most of it, we will not be playing. So maybe it's good we lead with some of these, but I think, being more clear about that and discussing that as we review the pieces would be quite good.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. So we'll be performing Tarina's 5 Gypsy Dances for piano arranged for guitar trio. I am in agreement. I think that's our big thing to continue refining and working on is our cueing, having clear, incisive breaths for each other. And deciding, well, we've already decided who's all leading one, but it's just, I think refining our cues is going to be the biggest thing. Because, we got the music down. It's a musical. It's coming together. But yeah, I know, Scott, you mentioned a little bit of our dynamic work. So maybe we'll, in some sections, we'll go for some even more quiet, exciting pianos. Perhaps
I think we can
that a little.
We can expand our use of our range of dynamics,
our range, but yeah, cool. Tony, any thoughts? What do you think we'll be hitting?
I concur with that. Yeah, the refining our cues. It may be worth. I mean, we explored quite a bit of topics the last couple weeks, and including this week. It might be worth exploring the breath and movement together.
Oh yeah, we might work on our breathing together.
Because that goes along with the cues. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, a lot of times, you'll breathe and lead a cue, or I breathe, or Scott will breathe to lead a cue. But, we've been shy to do that simultaneously.
Yeah,
because I think we've been afraid to take away from whoever's leading that cue. But I think we should try and see what happens if we just all breathe together, knowing that so-and-so's like we know who's leading the cues now. So we just do it sympathetically. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, we should.
I mean, I think we should explore that. And it's nice because we can go deep on just a little bit of repertoire. If we do have time, I do think we should still try to play through the other stuff because we still will have some stuff coming up.
Yeah, we do have to keep it in shape. Yeah, I think that's another way we can head is refining our mind meld. I think breathing together, being more conscious of each other, and not being so stuck in the music as we get it more and more refined. I think that'll add a lot to our expressivity. When the trio unites,
we should maybe start to experiment with some things too. Like, we can't. I don't know. I don't have enough memorized to play with my eyes closed, but And I know the sound would be different, but no.
We gotta make eye contact.
It's weird,
Stare
but
into each other's souls.
what if we didn't make eye contact? What if we just tried to like just listen to the subtleties, there? That might be interesting.
Yeah.
Or just change some things like, I mean, maybe it's too experimental for this situation because we're preparing for something, but try to have a situation where Tony just leads all of it. Or you just lead all of it,
Well, that's what happens every time.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Tony's always taking control.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
But yeah.
We should experiment with stuff like that. I think it'd be fun. And it might be neat to see, like, well, what if, like, with seating arrangement too, like, we found that seating arrangement will have an effect on the music. Well, maybe the cue, maybe it makes sense in some ways for Ben to cue this part, but for some reason it just sounds better when I do or Tony does, or maybe, any variation of that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of our cueing decisions were just practically based on like has a downbeat.
Exactly.
But we could always re-explore it. Yeah, maybe to perfect our mind meld we have to have everything memorized. Oh no.
I
don't know, that might be the way to level up. As brutal as it sounds, that might be the way to level up.
There's this I think it's British quartet, and they were playing out a lot, and all their stuff is memorized. I sent you guys some videos.
You did. It was
so impressive to have all that rep memorized.
Yeah. I guess we are professionals.
Yeah, but no. I mean,
no. We can mind meld while still
we are
having
professionals, but we're kind of professional teachers.
That is true.
and we are professional musicians, but it's not like our main gig. If we were getting high ticketed things,
then it'd be viable.
then it would be
realistic.
It would be something to discuss and consider. But we also have to be, I think, realistic.
That is true.
I mean, we could also decide on key areas. I mean, this was what I did with the youth ensemble. It was like, hey, let's have these key measures memorized, or this, we could come to a consensus on what we have memorized if it's not all of it.
Yeah. Certain sections.
So that's a possible thing. It makes me think about, we have a really nice set of material, and we're booking things. Scott, I have a lead on another performance for a church, and so we have a handful of things coming up.
We're doing it,
and so it's great to kind of go through this repertoire and put it through its paces. And by playing repertoire that's familiar, we can become cohesive in our performance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sick of the rep, but I also look forward to developing our relationship with new rep. You know what I mean? Going through that process of learning new rep, but also like making the more intelligent decisions up front because of our experience. So I'm excited about that aspect of it.
You know what? Yeah, one thing I think we might consider more, and something I found recently that I've been trying, is playing something that I've prepared well, especially before a performance, doing it slightly under tempo. And
that's all my practicing.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like it's liberating because it feels very easy.
It does.
So then you're able to kind of back off of anything that is challenging. I think we could stand to. I mean, I actually think it helps with tempo. In the long run, because you play things slightly under tempo, and then you just build confidence with your playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think we should tackle that on the next episode, right? Which we're covering building speed. Is that
are we?
That is the next episode.
That is.
Yeah.
How to become wicked fast.
Because I mean, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting idea, and I wonder, like, you know, I practice exercises pretty darn fast. I bring them up to a pretty fast speed. So I
Mm.
always had this concept of power in reserve. So I'm never really firing on all cylinders to play any of my repertoire. So like I like to practice, especially leading up to a performance. I always like to practice at a performance tempo because I don't want to take it too slow, but I also don't want to take it too fast. I want to
Yeah.
have that performance tempo ingrained. So, I mean, what is I like? This is a good conversation, but like, what are you finding the benefit of playing the piece slower?
Well, I feel like when you play slightly slower,
Yeah.
you're more likely to listen and engage in certain ways to some of the subtleties that you might miss when you're playing. And it's not that you're physically kind of like, coming up at your limit when you're playing at tempo, but just that when you're playing slightly under tempo, you take away a bit of that, muscle memory. And it's more in the mind type thing. So you're thinking and listening. I feel like a little bit differently, and I feel like that sharpens it. I think that there's like technique is pretty important, but I mean, and we should save it maybe, but I do think a lot of speed playing in general, not always, comes uh from listening and mostly from the ear.
Mm.
Like I do my exercises
Yeah,
and warm ups, and I do start them slow and I build them
sure.
to extremely fast. I never play my pieces. I practice them slow.
Yeah,
It's yeah. So when it comes to the repertoire, like that is like I practice it's extraordinarily slow,
of course. Yeah,
and then so you can be every movement. Like I don't have to be like, oh well, my pinky's sticking up. Well, because I've already worked that out from my warm ups and my
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exercises, right? So I can focus on, oh, how are my fingers moving from here to there, and how are my fingers, stroking the string. Eh.
Yep.
Don't giggle, man.
Tell us more. How are you
But yes, and
stroking
the
the
tone
strings?
production, but for sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, all good things. This will be a great episode. Next episode on speed.
It will be.
As
Look at
far
us making a little teaser.
Yeah, so that's good. So
Wow.
as far as our rehearsal, I think we can. I think we can also do that too. We should
I,
experiment with
Not
that.
saying. I think it's just interesting. I do think in the process of learning the pieces together,
Hmm.
because I think you learn them on your own, but then it's different when you put it together and you're playing it in the ensemble. So like, I do think we have to kind of take our own, you know, do as we say type thing,
Hmm.
because we're always talking about, you know, playing slower, kind of, focusing on certain things. And, yeah, we're not quite at the level where we're meeting and, we're doing one or two rehearsals of the music and then we're performing it. But, we're crafting something together.
Hmm.
So I think it's a little bit different. I think we'd benefit from some slower playing, in building the repertoire, like doing parts of the music slower, where we can really digest it as a group, who's doing what, and hearing the subtleties behind it. Because I feel like later on we've had a number of discoveries, like, Scott's playing the wrong rhythm here, Scott's playing the wrong rhythm there,
Right.
that type of stuff. And I mean, that's somewhat unrelated, but
Hmm.
I think things come to light along the way that we could kind of capture more in the beginning.
For sure.
I mean, you sing, and I'm sure you guys have both done some choir stuff. I know I did when I was in like undergrad there for my performance degree. I had to sing in a choir, and we would do these. We would do this kind of like just small kind of spot practice type stuff, or like it'd be like very almost like unmeasured, just like one group of notes together and then the next group, so we could hear how the voices would
building the chords
change
slowly,
and stuff like that. So
moving out of tempo. Yeah.
I think stuff like that is kind of interesting. Yeah.
I ran into your old choral teacher.
Oh yeah,
He remembered you.
yeah. Who's
He
that?
remembered you. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but he was your choral director in undergrad. Because
Yeah.
I mentioned classical guitar, and he's like, I remember Scott Walter. He remembered you.
There was actually a few different directors for that.
Voice of an angel.
Oh, yeah, that's what he said. He said, "Oh my word, that lyric tenor." I'll bet you were a tenor, Scott. Were you?
I was a baritone.
Oh, baritone. Oh my word. Yeah.
I don't know what I don't
They
know.
just stuck you in there.
I had no idea what I was doing.
That's pretty cool. There you go. But
fun.
anyways, but yeah.
Good.
Alrighty.
Good.
Sounds like we got our game plan. Heading into our next exciting rehearsal. So we'll continue sailing on, us salty sailors, in our little dinghy, and seeing what happens. Thanks again for anyone who may have been listening. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.